Okay, today is July, I think it's 21st.
It is,
Okay.
Tuesday.
So, and I'm here interviewing my mother-in-law, this is Gary Ploetz. So tell us your name, please.
Well, my real name is Andrea Theodora Duncan Sindelar, but everybody calls me Tody.
And how did you get the nickname Tody?
My parents believed in naming us after them, but not as juniors. So my father was Everett Thomas Duncan, so they named my brother Thomas Everett, and my mother was Theodora Andrea, so they named me Andrea Theodora, and she had always been called Tody by her favorite uncle, so they knew before I was born I was going to be called Tody.
Okay. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, primarily in Alamo Heights, which is a suburb of San Antonio.
And what was the address of y'all's house?
527 College Boulevard in Alamo Heights.
And how old are you?
Oh, I'm 80. I just turned 80.
Okay, so what's your date of birth?
I was born May 9th, 1946 in Turo Infirmary in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, there's a story of why I was born in New Orleans. My parents did not live in New Orleans at that time. I think they lived in Chicago then, but my father needed to have his children born and raised in the South. So when my brother was born, my mother was sent to New Orleans to have him, and when she was expecting me, she was sent to New Orleans to have me. They didn't know about the internet back then, and they thought all of our records should be together in the same town in the South.
That's interesting. And what's your brother's name?
Thomas Everett Duncan.
And how much older is he than you?
2 years.
2 years. Okay, so let's talk about your mother. So your mother's name was?
My mother's name was Theodora Andrea Schuber Duncan.
Okay.
And there's no T on the end of Schuber.
Schuber. And who were her parents?
Her mother was Anna Slosser Schuber, and because she was married to a man whose last name was Schuber, and that's it.
Okay. And what was her husband's name? Your grandfather?
I don't really know his first name. I don't know his first name.
Maybe Andreas?
I think his name was Andreas.
And that's where
Schuber.
Andrea comes from.
Well,
Andreas. Okay.
He died a month before my mother was born.
And what happened to him?
He died of the flu, what was it, swine flu?
No, the Spanish flu.
Spanish flu at the end of 1918. He had been an attorney in New Orleans, very socialized, very social. And I think he'd been king of the big crew at that time. And so, but he died.
This is your grandfather.
Yes, and he had the flu, got well, went to take the waters, they say, in someplace in Arkansas, and he got sick again up there and came home and died. And his sister was in the same house and died at the same time. Well, maybe died a day before.
In New Orleans.
In New Orleans.
Okay. And so his name was Schuber.
Schuber, there's no T on the end.
Schuber. Okay. And do you know anything about his family?
No.
And the Schlossers, what do you know about the Schlossers? That would be your grandmother, your mother's mother.
My mother's mother, of course, now she was a widow with a brand new baby, and she lived with her father, and he was from Germany, and he ran a brewery in New Orleans, and also I understand that he gave the monkey house to the zoo in the park in New Orleans at that time.
And what was the name of the brewery?
Dixie Beer.
Okay, and Dixie Beer is fairly famous in New Orleans.
It was, it's not anymore.
Okay. And so your mother grew up in with her grandparents, and
No, with her grandfather.
with her grandfather.
I never heard of a grandmother.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's see. So your mother's mother was Anna Schlosser.
Schlosser Schubert.
Anna Schlosser. So Anna raised her baby, your mother, Theodora, at her father's house.
Yes.
Okay. And what do you know? So do you know how your mother, Theodora, and your father, Everett, how they met?
Well, of course I do.
Okay.
Her house was next door to a fraternity house for Tulane Medical School. And my father, who was 10 years older than my mother, lived in that fraternity house, and that's how they met.
Huh. I did not know that. Okay. And so let's talk about, so we know about your mother's background. So your father was Everett Duncan. So what do you know about his parents?
Not very much. He was the baby of the family, and he lived up in a place called Trees, Texas, and that was out in the absolute middle of nowhere, and they owned the general store in the middle of nowhere, and it just happened to be sitting on top of some oil. It was the first oil field for Standard Oil of New Jersey. And that's near Shreveport. That's on the Texas side of the border near Shreveport. Turn it on. It's the yard man.
Okay, we're back. Okay, so tell me, you were born in New Orleans, and then where were y'all living? And then
I think they were living in Chicago, not sure, but I think when I was about 2 years old, they moved to San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
And they rented a house on Agarita until mother wanted just a stone house. She liked stone houses, and this house came available. And this house had been, at 527 College Boulevard, had been the first house built in the area known as TMI. And it was owned by a single woman, and it was a one-bedroom, I believe one-bath home. The one bedroom was huge, and so my parents bought it, and eventually, when I was probably 5 or 4, they built on a master bedroom and master bath, and then much later, my mother added a big glass room we called the tree house because it was up one story in the back. It made that level with the rest of the house, so we called that the tree house.
And did the house have air conditioning?
No, but that was okay. We would sit out on the front porch. My father thought the breeze would come up from the coast and get there at about 8 o'clock in the evening, and so we'd all sit out on the front porch to catch the breeze. Mm-hmm. Eventually we got window units, and then eventually we got central heat and air, but I didn't really even think about the house not having central heat and air in both the living room and the dining room until I put the house up for sale. And it was never hot in there, and it was never cold in there, but because those two rooms were stone on the outside and stone on the inside, and that was 2 layers of stone, thick stones, and so it just never got hot and it never got cold.
Hold on a second. Okay, so in what business was your dad in?
My father was a dermatologist, and he officed in 1009 South Texas building, which is not an office building anymore. I think it's a hotel, I believe. You can stand on the balcony at the Majestic Theater and look to your right and see that building.
And so it's on Houston Street?
Yes.
Okay. And so did your family have more than one car?
Oh no. We had one very normal car, and we had like a black Chrysler, and
So would your mother
we had an
drive?
Imperial. We had a Chrysler Imperial at one time. That was white. Ooh. And that had air conditioning in it, which was those great big tubes that came out behind the back seat and came forward. That was the first air conditioned car we had.
And so did your mom drop him off every day, or was she home with no car?
I don't remember. I don't remember what happened. I think a lot of the time she was home with no car. Sometimes she worked at the office because we had, I guess, a live-in maid that lived in the basement. And so Mother would take him down and she'd stay and work in the office and I guess do the books and greet people and that sort of thing. And then when we would come to New Braunfels, starting when I was 5 years old, she would drive him to the Faust Hotel, and that's where the Greyhound bus would pick him up and drive him into San Antonio, and the bus station in San Antonio, and that was about a block from his office, still is. And so the car would be left with us most of the time.
Okay. So, and when you were 5, you started coming to New Braunfels.
Well, my parents were invited to join the San Antonio Country Club, which was a really big deal. But my father didn't play golf, and my mother didn't play bridge. My mother did drink a little, but my father didn't drink at all. So they didn't see any reason to join. And my father said, well, I've heard about this little place called New Braunfels. Let's go up there and look. And so they came up and they started renting houses every summer for quite a while until they built a house in 1966. And that's when he would take the bus into town. Occasionally, I can remember 2 or 3 times as I was growing up, he must have had the car, and for some reason, we needed to go into San Antonio, so we would catch the Greyhound bus, and the bus went up Broadway. There weren't any loops or 281s or anything then, so the bus would come up Broadway, and bus driver was nice enough to leave us off at the corner of College Boulevard and Broadway, and then we'd walk the 4 blocks home and be at the house.
So did your parents socialize?
They did socialize.
They have dinner parties, or?
They would have dinner parties, yes, in the dining room. And I got to sit in on the dinner parties, and I still own the piece of furniture out there, which is kind of a needle-pointed stool kind of thing that sat me up high enough to feel like an adult at the table. And when it wasn't there for dinner parties, they had it over where you sat and talked on the phone. So it was our phone bench.
And did your parents go to church? Did y'all go to church as a family?
I don't recall my father ever going to church. My mother had been raised Catholic. She did not like Catholicism at all, and she went to the Alma Heights Methodist Church. At that time it was on Broadway, and she got to where she was teaching Sunday school all the time, also at the Alma Heights Methodist Church, and the minister said to her, we can't have you teaching and you being a Catholic, you have to become a Methodist. So she became a Methodist.
Okay. And it seems like I remember that your family would go on regular family vacations.
We always went on very educational driving because my father did not believe ever in flying. I'm not sure he ever got on an airplane. And so we drove all over the country. Not so much the East Coast, but primarily out west, yeah.
So what were some of the places that you went?
The main thing I remember, because I just went to Yellowstone for my 80th birthday. I remember going to Yellowstone not for my 8th birthday, when I was 8 years old, and watching Old Faithful. I can remember going to the Great Salt Lake. I can remember floating in the Great Salt Lake, and you can't sink in the Great Salt Lake. I can remember sitting and burning my bottom on a piece of petrified wood stump. And a lot of times we looked at universities. I don't know why, because I was just a little girl, but.
And so I remember you saying that he didn't want to stay at the lodge in Yellowstone.
At Old Faithful.
At Old Faithful.
He was very cautious person, and
That's why he didn't fly.
That's why he didn't fly, and he was sure that that inn at the Yellowstone was going to burn to the ground.
So he didn't stay there. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so where did you go to elementary school?
Cambridge Elementary School in Alamo Heights.
And did you walk there?
Very rarely. My mother took me most of the time and picked me up most of the time, but every now and then, if there was a conflict, I could walk home. It was kind of a ways, and but no, I could walk home from there.
And what do you remember about elementary school? Who was your best friend?
Linda Worsham. Linda Lee Davis was her name, but Linda Worsham, back in the 3rd grade, that was her name, was my best friend. And I remember the big ramps. They didn't have staircases. They had these very wide, probably not very wide, but I remember them being very wide, ramps that you went up and down from floor to floor instead of going up and down staircases.
And so Linda Lee was your best friend all growing up? Right,
except that she went away to boarding school for high school, which was very inconvenient for our friend.
And were there other children in the neighborhood that you played with?
Tons of them. Jane Schatz lived 2 houses up. Boo Alexander, that was a boy, lived kind of diagonally across the street. The Riordan boys lived on the corner of Lahara and College Boulevard, and their daddy had built the little playland on Broadway. It was across the street and ran it. I mean, it was their business when we were growing up.
And what was your brother like when you were growing up?
Oh, he was my older brother. I didn't pay that much attention to him.
Okay. And let's see. So did your mother cook?
No.
So
we always had a cook.
You always had a cook. So she was a housekeeper also?
Yes.
And what was her name? Or did you have different ones?
Well, first we had Leela. We had her for quite a while. And then we had Ruby at the end, but I don't remember in between.
Okay, and so let's say
there may not have been an in between.
So and where did you go for junior high?
Well, the junior high was attached to Cambridge Elementary at that time, so I don't even know that it had a different name, and it was.
And so during that time, tell me what the typical school day would be like. Who woke you up in the morning?
Oh, I have no idea.
And did you have breakfast before you left for school?
Oh yes, breakfast was very important.
So did the cook breakfast for you, or did
yeah.
your mom cook it?
No, no.
The cook did.
The maid cooked it.
Okay, and so would y'all sit down, everybody together, and have breakfast? Did you have breakfast with your dad?
I think so. Yeah, and we always had medical lessons because it was deemed that my brother was going to go to medical school. But I wasn't. But so whatever slopped over medically on me, slopped over on me.
So that was your dad. And so y'all would all sit down to. So did you take a sack lunch to school, or did you eat at school?
No, we ate in the cafeteria.
Okay. And at dinner, everybody sit down.
Yes, everybody sat down and ate together.
Did you eat in the dining room, or was there a kitchen table?
There was a big kitchen table, big round kitchen table.
Okay. And what was Christmas like in your house?
Very happy, very joyous. Had the Christmas tree in the living room. And
okay. Any special traditions or anything?
Well, in 1955, so let's see, I'd be 9 years old. Oh, probably a month before that, before Christmas, I had a little transistor radio. And I took it to school with me, and I could listen to it when I was walking from school to where Mother would pick me up. And I heard this ad for Gillespie Motors. You can afford a Ford when you buy from Gillespie. When you buy from Gillespie, you can afford a Ford. So when I got to the car, I told my mother that I'd heard this ad saying that they were going to give away a Thunderbird Junior. But you had to come downtown to register for it. And by then, we actually owned 2 cars, and one of them was a Ford from Gillespie Motors. So my mother, I did not know at the time, was a caraholic. She loved cars. And so I said, could we go down and I register for it? Why, of course we can do that. So we go down and I register. Then comes Christmas Eve day. And my mother says, I have to come in and take a nap in the middle of the day. I hadn't taken a nap in a long time, but she said I had to come inside and take a nap. And so I take a nap. And then that night, we're supposed to go to these people's house named the Parsons. Jay and Ruby Parsons. And they had 2 girls and a boy. So I pitched a fit. I did not want to go to the Parsons because Gillespie Ford had said they were going to give that car away on Christmas Eve. And I was convinced that I would miss the phone call. We didn't have answering machines back then. And that they'd go ahead and they'd call someone else and they'd give that car to them because I knew I was going to win that car. And I don't know how my parents convinced me that I had to go to the Parsons house, but we all went to the Parsons house. And I came home, and back then I could do this. I went to sleep with every one of my fingers crossed, hoping I'd get that car. Well, I got up in the morning, and there was that turquoise Thunderbird Junior in the living room because I had wanted. And that's why my mother made me take a nap, because they were delivering it to the neighbor's house. They had called my father at his office. He had arranged for it to be delivered to the neighbor's house, and then they got it after we were at the Parsons house for Christmas.
And so what happened to the car?
My mother sold it for $100 when I was at college. But they're not worth very much more than that. There apparently were a lot of them, but this was the very first one.
So was it motorized? Or?
It was motorized. It had a big car battery that your feet went on each side of it. It was just as dangerous as heck. If you get that battery acid on you, I never did, but and yeah, it was motorized, and I could go down and drive along Lahara all the time. And then the Raritan boys' father built them a little gasoline engine car. He's the one that owned Playland, and so they could ride around on Lahara too.
And so tell me about, what about Thanksgiving? Did y'all have Thanksgiving at home?
I have no memories of Thanksgiving.
No giving, okay. And did your Uncle Homer live with y'all for a while?
For a while. I would say when I was 4 and 5, Uncle Homer lived in the basement.
And who was he?
He was my father's brother.
Okay. And did he work for Standard Oil?
He worked for some oil company in Venezuela. I don't know which one.
Okay. And then did your grandmother ever live with you? Ma or Anna Schlosser?
No.
Because she died in San Antonio.
Well, she was in a nursing home, not a kind of semi between nursing and independent living. Back then, there was not a whole lot of that stuff. But yes, she died in San Antonio.
So she came to San Antonio.
Yes.
Sometime later in life.
When she was unable to take care of herself. Yes.
Okay. And what did you call her?
Nah.
It was probably short for Anna.
Anna. Yeah.
Okay.
Nah.
So where was high school?
Alamo Heights High School, right there on Broadway.
Okay, so it's always been there.
Yeah.
And
I think it was built in like 1929. And the house I lived in was, I think, built in 1928.
So what was high school like?
I loved high school. It was just lots of fun.
What year did you graduate?
And by the way, I could get a driver's license, a full driver's license at age 14. And I took full advantage of the full driver's license.
So did your parents buy you a car?
No.
No. So what year did you graduate?
1963.
Okay. So
what? Class of 63, we'll go down in history.
So what activities were you involved in high school?
Oh, I was on the drill team. I wasn't involved in too much else other than going to parties. Man, there was a party every weekend. And I'm talking, there was a social woman, adult social secretary, you had to book a party through her. You were not allowed to just give a party. And so that, there'd be parties in the afternoon, parties in the evening. There were parties all the time. What can I say? It was a fun time.
That's interesting. So what were you like in high school? How would you describe yourself? What were you like? Were you one of the popular kids?
I was just medium. I wasn't popular, I wasn't unpopular. I was medium. I was always involved with, groups and things, but I have never been able to read very well. Probably because I skipped the first grade, and I've never been able to read very well. I think now that I'm dyslexic because they didn't have a word for that back then, and kind of looks like water running down the pages when I attempt to really read something. So I didn't do very well in school, but I'm not stupid, so I could, if somebody'd say something, I'd remember it, and so I just muddled my way through.
So how did you decide to go to, what did you do during the summers, during high school?
I was on the swim team. We'd go over to the Alma Heights High School, not the Alma Heights High School, the Alma Heights swimming pool, and I was on the swim team, and we did and my brother was on the swim team, so we went to a lot of swim meets and
went to a lot of parties.
My mother had arranged, there had been a Handy Andy grocery store on Broadway that they were getting rid of. I guess they were going to build a new Handy Andy or something. And so my mother arranged to have that moved over to the grounds of the high school for it to be a party room, just in case there was one moment when you were invited to a party. And it had pool tables, and it had music, dancing, and she had the youth minister from the Alma Heights Methodist Church come and be kind of there all the time on the evenings, on the weekend, and so.
And how did you decide to go to SMU?
I don't think I decided that. I think I was told by my mother that's where I was going to school. Well, didn't mean that much to me. So.
Oh, okay. So did you live in a dorm?
I did. The first year I lived in a dorm.
So did you go up there and tour the school, or how did they drop you off? How did all that happen?
I don't remember. And I didn't have a car, so I don't remember.
Okay. So you went to SMU, you lived in a dorm?
I lived in a dorm the first year. I think the second year I lived in the Zeta Tau Alpha sorority house.
So you were in a sorority?
Yes.
Zeta Tau Alpha?
Yes.
And what do you remember about that?
I liked it. It was a big mansion, and it had good food that you sat down with. You had waiters that wore white shirts and bow ties and tablecloths, and you sat down and were fed meals, and I liked that.
And did you do you have any friends that you still know from there?
No.
No. And
my little sister, I liked her the best, Francine Rudine. She's dead now, and she's been dead a long time.
So while you were at SMU, you met Bob Sindelar.
Yes.
And how did y'all meet?
I don't know.
Okay. And eventually y'all got married. And where did y'all live?
Bonita, on a street called Bonita in Dallas for a little while. And then we moved to Florida.
Okay. And was Kim born in Dallas? So before you went to Florida, Kim was born?
Yes, at Parkland.
At Parkland.
Where JFK died.
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody knows that hospital.
Just 3 years before.
Yeah.
Okay. So were you there?
Yes.
You were on campus when JFK got killed?
Yes, I did. I actually went to take a midterm test, and we sat there, and then somebody came in and said, he's dead. Well, we didn't know what they meant, and then they told us that the president had been shot and was dead, and that we weren't going to have the midterm test, and so that's what. So then I went back and to my dorm, and now you have to realize that while my brother was having medical teachings at breakfast, I was having financial stock market teachings on the weekends. And so I went back to my dorm room, long distance called my father, told him that the president had been shot and was dead, and to put in a really low buying offer to buy more Exxon stock. Only they'd stopped it. They had stopped it by then, because I had to walk clear across campus. So they had stopped the stock market trading by then.
Let's see. Let me ask you this. I may not have covered this. So when you were growing up, did you ever work?
No.
Did you work before you got to college?
No.
Okay. So then y'all, do you remember anything else about when JFK got killed? So the next day,
everything shut down.
Everything shut down?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So y'all moved to Florida. Why did y'all move to Florida?
Well, Bob Sindelar had gotten a job with Sears Roebuck, and that's where he was sent. Okay. So that's where we went. And I really didn't have much to do with anything. And his parents bought a motel about 35 miles north of Fort Lauderdale called Ocean Patio. And it had 7 units and then a 3-bedroom house attached to it. We lived in the 3-bedroom house and rented out and ran the units as a motel. And I would go into the nearest town, Boca Raton and Delray Beach. We were kind of in between. And I would go to the Chamber of Commerce and get the letters from people that had written the Chamber of Commerce asking about a place to stay. Now, mind you, there wasn't any internet. So they would, and then I had an electric typewriter that typed in script, and I would write everybody a letter inviting them to come stay and giving them our phone number and sending them one of our postcards. And that's how we kept full. We kept full primarily in the winter, but every now and then, always we had somebody that would stay for the winter. A young man stayed there for the winter. A couple from Connecticut stayed there for the winter. A guy that was coming down because they were building a new IBM plant, and he was the personnel manager. He and his teenage son came and lived there for the winter. And wasn't very winter. You could swim every day, so it was a pretty nice life. And then Rob was born while we lived there.
Okay, so now you have 2 kids, and so Bob's at work all day. Are you running the hotel then?
Yes, but I had a black man that worked for me, and he was. Sometimes we had a maid and him during the winter, but when we were completely full, and then we had just him during the winter. During the summer, and he could do maid stuff too. So.
And so, how long did y'all live there? So, what year was Rob born?
Rob was born in '68.
Okay.
I'm thinking we lived there a year and a half.
Okay. And then where did y'all move?
Chicago.
So, not a good time. So, where did y'all live in Chicago?
In Berwyn.
Is that where his parents lived?
That's right.
Okay. And how long were y'all there?
I'm guessing 2 years. No, we weren't there that long. No, we weren't there that long at all. Probably only a year. And it wasn't because I was saying that I was unhappy or anything. I don't think Bob was happy with being there either.
Yeah.
I think he told him either transfer me back south or I quit. And so they transferred us to Fort Myers, Florida.
Which is a nice spot.
Yeah, we weren't staying in a nice spot.
Oh, okay. So y'all went to Fort Myers. So was he working for Sears and had a store that he was working at?
Yeah, but it's like he had no position. And everybody was like, what is he doing? Is he a spy? What is he doing here?
And so, and how long were y'all there?
I don't know. Maybe a year, maybe less.
Okay. And then you moved to where?
Albany? I think that's when we moved to Albany, Georgia. Okay. Not Albany.
Albany, Georgia. Okay. And how was Albany?
It's a really nice little town.
Okay. And how old are Now, how old are Kim and Rob?
Well, see, I can remember Kim's third birthday there because she got a little black cat named Charlie. I remember that. And my parents drove over from Texas for her third birthday. And I can remember that maybe they were about 40 miles away from Albany. And they stopped at a filling station and said, "How far is it to Albany?" "I don't know. I've never heard of Albany." "Oh, you mean Albany?" "Yes, yes, yes, yes." Okay. So.
Okay. And so Kim said y'all had a nice house in Albany.
Well, pretty nice house, yeah.
And how long did y'all stay there?
Don't know.
3 or 4 years?
Oh, not that long. Maybe 2 years.
Okay. And then from Albany, where did y'all move to?
I guess we went to Huntsville, Alabama. I guess that's where we went.
Wow, y'all were really moving every couple of years then.
Mm-hmm.
So how was Huntsville?
It was a lovely town. Everybody there, except for us, either had PhDs or at least masters because it was the space capital. And so everybody there was geniuses.
Was working for NASA.
Right.
And
including all the teachers in the schools. So our kids got a very good beginning to their education.
So that's when they first started first grade and second grade?
Right. Jones Valley.
So was Kim Little Miss Albany at one time?
Yeah, she was. I forgot about that. Yep.
How did that happen?
Heard about the contest and entered her, and her best friend entered. And of course, Kim beat her, so.
Okay, and Huntsville, so did you work in Huntsville?
No.
Okay, so did y'all socialize?
Lots. I had lots of friends.
So lots of friends in the neighborhood and in the community?
And from church.
Mm-hmm.
We joined a Christian church, first Christian church. My mother was horrified. She thought that was hallelujah kind of place. It wasn't. It's just like a normal kind of church. And I kept reminding her, remember, TCU is Texas Christian University. It's just a normal religion.
Okay. And then after, so how long did y'all stay in Albany? Huntsville?
I guess 2 years.
Okay. And then after that?
Where did we go? Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge. Okay.
Poor Kim. Kim and her best friend both were chosen to be cheerleaders. Well, they were in elementary school or junior high or something. So, so it wasn't like they were college cheerleaders. But, so now they've been elected. Kim goes off to Camp Waldemar. I think it was her first year at Camp Waldemar. And we get transferred while she's at Camp Waldemar, which was a 6-week session at that time. She never goes back to Huntsville. She leaves Camp Waldemar and comes to our new house in Baton Rouge.
And so did y'all had 2 houses in Baton Rouge. The first one was a 1-story. Did y'all buy that or rent it?
No, we bought it.
And did you build the second one?
We built the second house, yes.
On
In
the
fact,
lake?
we bought a lot on the lake. There was a lake in the middle of the subdivision. We bought a lot on the lake. Then I was a real estate agent, and my broker and his wife had a primo location of a lot, because of course they had their pick. And they didn't really have the money to build on it. So we sold the lot we had bought and bought the lot that my broker had had, and it had just fabulous view.
Okay. And so y'all design the house and build it?
Yes.
Okay. And so how was living in Baton Rouge?
Oh, I like living in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Good food.
Good food, lots of friends?
Yes, and I was selling real estate by then, so most of my friends had to do with the real estate company.
Okay. And so you sent your kids to private school?
Well, we sent them to public school when we got there, but as I said, they had such a good education coming from Huntsville that they called us in and said they couldn't teach Kim. That not that she was causing trouble or anything, she was just so far above her grade level. And so they had started, what are those schools where there's...
Montessori?
No, not Montessori. Magnet. They started magnet schools. And she didn't get into the magnet school. We tried to get her into a Catholic school. By the way, they were just starting integration in Baton Rouge at that time, and that was really late.
Yeah.
And so all the public schools, the private schools were all booked up, and the Catholics said, oh no, you're not Catholic. We said, well, what'll it take for us to become Catholic? But no, they weren't falling for that. So we couldn't get her into Catholic school. We were gonna have to send her away because we didn't know what else to do with her, because the public school said they couldn't educate her. And they said, how do you know math 4 years above your grade level? Well, I don't know how she do that. But anyway, so, but we did get her into the Episcopal school, which was just lovely, and small classes, and it was wonderful.
Yeah. And Rob eventually go there also?
Yes, they got in at the same time, because if they take one child, they're going to take the other kid. They're not going to turn them down.
So how old was she when she started Episcopal?
I'm thinking it was like the 5th grade. I'm about that, yeah. I think Episcopal started in the 5th grade.
And then, so tell me about your friends Bobby and Barbara.
Well, they were in my real estate company, and I mean, they were just great friends. What can I say? I still talk to both of them every now and then.
And so tell me about which one of them saved your life.
Gary gives a whole lot of credence to this, and I should give a lot of credence to it too. Bobby and I can't even tell you her last name because she got married several times. She was Bobby Tugwell, then she was, I don't know all her last names. Anyway, she and I would work out at 6:30 in the morning at this gymnasium, and we would run on a treadmill, and I'd be running on this treadmill, and she'd be walking on the treadmill, but we weren't going anywhere, so we could chat with each other. And she mentioned something that she would go down to New Orleans to Ochsner's twice a year for physicals. And I said, oh, I haven't been to a doctor in 8 years. And she said, oh, that's terrible. And I said, no, I feel fine. Look, I'm running, you're walking. And so the next week I come in and there's a note on my desk, and she says, I have booked you I've booked you an appointment to have a physical at Ochsner's in New Orleans on such and such a day. And so I thought, okay, but I told Bob about it, and he said, oh no, insurance won't pay for that. You can't have a physical. Well, anyway, I went and had the physical, and it turns out I'd had ovarian cancer, came to San Antonio, had the surgery, and decided to file for divorce. If I wasn't going to outlive him, I was going to have a good time while I was, because then there was no treatment for ovarian cancer. So I just thought, well, I better have a good life, a fun life, or enjoy my life. And that's what I did. Came filed for divorce and moved to New Braunfels.
And so you moved, so in this time, Kim was in college, right, by this time?
Yes, Kim was in college, and I think Rob was in college.
Okay. So you decided to move to New Braunfels?
Well, we owned the cabin, so
Okay.
I had a place I could move to.
Okay. And so so tell me about your new life. You start your new life in New Braunfels.
Well, I just...
You reinvent yourself.
Well, I knew I had to earn a living, and I could sell real estate. I knew I could do that. But my license did not come from Louisiana, Texas. You had to go to school all over again. So I immediately went to school and took 6 weeks of it in San Antonio, drove in every day, got my license. And but I really did not want to sell real estate anymore. I knew I didn't want to sell real estate in New Braunfels, because at that time, New Braunfels was small Hickville.
What year is this?
Probably 1987. And other than my neighborhood, there weren't any classy neighborhoods. And I did not think that I wanted to work with the kind of people I'd have to be working with in this town. So I thought, okay, what can I do to earn a living? And I thought about opening one of those UPS stores that has the little mailboxes, and my mother didn't think that was a good idea. So then I thought about opening a suntan lotion and lemonade and hats store in Green. And Green was not a big deal back then. And my friends all came from Baton Rouge over to visit, and they sat down with my mother and said, "Oh, you can't let her do that. She'll just be hiding away in this." And then I thought, well, before I had left Baton Rouge, my brother had called me and said, "Where can I buy magnets with my name imprinted on them?" And I said, "I don't know. I sell real estate." "Where can I buy tote bags with my name imprinted on them?" "I don't know. I sell real estate." And so I thought, you know, if he doesn't know where to buy this stuff, probably nobody knows where to buy this stuff. Because I always thought they had a terrible name of the business. Not my company or anything, but they're called promotional products. Well, who knows what the hell that is? Nobody really knew what that was. So I decided to start a promotional products company. I went to the library. I got a book that said how to, I couldn't hardly read, but I got this book that said how to start a mail order company.
You got it from the library?
I got it from the library here. And I got this book. It said how to start a mail order company. And then I started to, I thought, well, I applied to the American Academy of Ophthalmology to be an exhibitor, which was always in October, I believe. And I don't know what month this was, but anyway, they said no. We know you can't be here. And so 2 days before the American Academy of Ophthalmology, they said, "Oh yeah, we want you. Somebody back out. You can have a booth there." And so, oh my God, I'd never even been to a convention, let alone exhibited at a convention. Number one. Number two, there were not desktop computers back then, and so I just got as many things, cut pictures out of catalogs from my manufacturers and glued them on pages and glued the pricing on pages. And I had an old printer and I just print pages with these products on them. And my mother and I, we rented a van and the show was in Dallas, and we drove up to it and took our stuff in, and then we knew we were doing something right because there were people lined up at the table. We stood behind a table, which you're not supposed to do at a convention, and there were people reaching over people and grabbing us by their collar to get our attention. They wanted our product so bad because, first of all, doctors were just beginning to be allowed to advertise. It had been illegal up until then, and they had no idea where to get these products. So that's how I got in the business. I came back to town and I had 600 leads. I had the doctors fill their name and address and phone number out on pieces of paper and write down what they were interested in, if they wanted coffee cups or tote bags or magnetic business cards. And then I had a friend tell me that there was a man in town that had a computer, a desktop computer, and that he had a program that did mail merge. And so it could say, "Dear Dr. Johnson, here's the information on the cups you wanted. Dear Dr. Smith, here's the information on the magnetic business cards you wanted." And so it took over a week that they got all that data entered into the computer and were able to print these letters up. And I was able to send this off along with samples, a lot of them, to samples to these doctors. And that started my business. And you were supposed to only have like a 2% return on your mail out, and I had a 16% return on my mail out, so I knew I was doing something right.
So from then on, you'd go to the conventions every year?
Yes, but in the meantime, I decided I was going to really produce a catalog. And so I was going to produce this catalog, and so I heard about this woman that knew how to produce catalogs. And she came over to talk to me, and she made the mistake of telling me step by step how to produce a catalog. So I didn't use her. I just did it step by step. I have to say, in the middle, this guy that had the computer that I heard about and produced these letters for me, I ran into him at a Kmart. We had a Kmart here in town, And I said, oh, that was so wonderful, the job you did for me. I wish I knew how to do that. I wish I knew how to do mail merge. And he said, well, why don't you just learn how to speak Chinese? And by 6 o'clock that evening, I owned a desktop computer and a mail merge program and a printer. And I never did learn how to speak Chinese, but I learned how to do that.
Good. And your company was very successful.
And my company was very successful, yeah.
And so when did you move into the house on College Boulevard?
I don't know. My mother wanted to move into a condo, and so I moved into San Antonio.
So you moved out of so you lived in the cabin for
at least 2 years.
At least 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay. And at some time you got married to a guy named Robinson.
Very briefly. I don't even remember that.
Okay. Okay, we'll skip over that.
Well, there's nothing bad. It just didn't last very long.
Okay.
Good wedding. Really good wedding.
It was
Terrible marriage.
It was on the island.
It was on the island.
And he was an airline pilot?
Yeah, TWA.
And how did you meet him?
My mother played tennis with him.
Okay. And then you met Dale Ayers.
Dale, yes.
And how did you meet Dale?
Oh, there was a singles party once a year in San Antonio. Well, I had formed a group of several women, probably about 6 women, that were single. And, either I knew them or one of them knew somebody else. And we called ourselves the Sweets, Single Women's Enjoyment and Entertainment Society. And we agreed that we would go do anything anybody wanted to do. Like if you wanted to go to the symphony, we'd all go to the symphony, or you wanted to go to two-step dancing, we'd go two-step dance. Didn't matter what it was. We'd all go do it. And so that worked out really well. Well, there was a party put on by a bar called Martini's in San Antonio, down at La Villita once a year for singles. And it would have 1,500 single men and 1,500 single women. It was very hard to get an invitation, but we all wrangled an invitation. I can remember they said the dress code was easy and breezy. So that's how we went, and that's where I met Dale. I had everybody, including myself, have business cards made up with just our name and our telephone number on them. If we met somebody we liked, we handed them our business card, and I handed Dale my business card. So.
And how old do you think you were when that happened?
Well, that was probably about 1993, 1994. I don't know. How old was I then?
I don't know.
Let's say somewhere around 50, 45 to 50.
No, you were younger than that. You were in your 40s. So,
I'm born in 46, 56, 66, 76, 86, 96. About 50, 45 to 50.
Well, I met you at a party with Dale. And how long y'all been dating?
I don't know, maybe a year.
Okay, so y'all have been dating a year?
Maybe.
Okay. And
and that was a singles party too. But we were out hunting for a guy for Kim by that time.
So you dated Dale for a year, and so you go to the singles party, and that's where you meet me.
I meet Gary.
What do you remember about that?
Well, I remember, actually, I saw him as we came in. He was dressed as a flasher with an overcoat on. And so we had gone to several singles things over the previous 2 weeks because Kim was moving to San Antonio. And I was determined I was going to find some young men for her today. And so we met this young man, and we sat down and had a nice talk with him. He lived in Del Rio. He was a U.S. attorney?
Assistant U.S. attorney.
Assistant U.S. attorney. But Kim had set her parameters, and she was 26 years old, and she would not date anybody more than 32. And this guy was over 32 years old and had been married and had a child. And so he said, we said, I'm sorry, you don't meet our parameters. And so a little bit later, he comes back with Gary, and he says, I got a 32-year-old for you. And we sat down, and we had... Dale had a really good talk with Gary about, because Dale had been in Vietnam and had on his flight suit, and which still fit him. And then we ended up getting his card. Well, yeah, we did get your card. I did get your card. And I stuffed my name, I think it was, or Kim's name and my telephone number in his pocket as he was surrounded by pretty women, and I stuffed it in his pocket so he would have a chance. And did I call you or did you call Kim?
Y'all called me.
We called Gary. Okay, yeah, I did.
When Kim got to town.
That's right.
So was Dale the love of your life?
I think he was. I do.
And
he loved me so much, and I loved him. I'm not sure I appreciated him as much as I should have, but in retrospect, man, he was, delightful.
And so what did y'all like to do?
Well, we did a lot of projects, building things and just all kinds of projects like that. We liked to be in New Braunfels, and we had totally different philosophies. And
how do you mean?
Well, we'd go fishing at the island, and we'd net up our bait. And I would net up these little baby crawfish to use as my bait on my hook. And Dale would only use a crawfish that was the granddaddy of all crawfish in the river. And I'd toss mine out, and I'd catch a little perch. And, I might catch 5 or 6 at a time. Well, let me just tell you, during Dale's life, he never caught a fish. He always cast out the big thing, but now I'm not sure he even got a bite. So I was happy with my company selling little bitty plastic stuff and tons of it. And he always had to be a gold miner or drilling for oil. He always had to make the big hit. So that's our different philosophies.
So what was Kim like growing up?
Well, she was very smart. And every now and then, the worst she would be, I'd say, petulant. She'd stomp her foot. But that's not real bad. And and I will say that now, she is super neat and clean. And I don't know when that happened, because she wasn't neat and clean when she was growing up. But that's okay. She was upstairs in her own room, and it didn't really bother me. But
so never any problems with Kim?
No. There was one problem. One Thanksgiving, she had a boyfriend, and she was going to leave Duke and go to LSU. And we had this World War III about that, and we had people invited over for Thanksgiving dinner, and we had to call them and tell them not to come because we were having World War III. And poor things, where do you go get a turkey on Thanksgiving morning? I don't know. And it turned out we were telling her the right thing, and she very much agreed with that.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. So eventually you sell the house so you moved it back into the house you grew up in on College Boulevard.
Yes.
Right? And you lived there for a number of years when you ran your business and when you were dating Dale, and when Kim moved to San Antonio. When I first laid eyes on her was at the door at College Boulevard.
That's right.
And then you talk about in your book that you wrote that your love affair with New Braunfels. So
yes.
Tell us about.
Well, I mean, I just love this town. But when I finally sold the house in San Antonio, and I moved back into one of the houses that I bought here in New Braunfels, and that was fine. I mean, I had a nice life and everything, and Dale was in my life, and then this house that I live in now became available, and I moved into it. Well, suddenly I became socially acceptable, because I wasn't just the divorcee that lived on Mulberry. I lived on the river. And that put you into it's a really very special class of people here in New Braunfels, because there's only like 24 properties between my house and the golf course on the river. I don't know how many, maybe 10 or 15 up on the cliff. And that's very exclusive, in this very exclusive part of the river. And so suddenly I became very socially acceptable, and I started getting invited to things, and I became one of the gals.
And you have a very active social life here.
Very active social life.
Tell me about your life and when COVID broke out.
Well, it was kind of sad. I mean, it was sad for everybody. I can remember I was at a doctor's office getting some sort of treatment on my knee, and Kim called me and said that at Costco there were people hauling toilet paper out, grocery carts full of toilet paper out, and so it was kind of sad. But I thought, okay, I gotta pull through this. And the dog was never going to learn to talk. Snuggles, my dog, even though I promised him if he'd learn to talk, I'd buy him thumbs, but he didn't learn to talk. And then after that, I realized he wouldn't have been much of a conversationalist anyway. I mean, how many squirrels can I hear about that he's chased? So, first thing I did was decide I was going to recreate famous oil paintings with things I had here in the house.
So you're basically, during COVID, everybody, especially if you're older, you're locked in.
I'm at home.
You're not going anywhere.
I don't go to the grocery store. I have my groceries delivered. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not socializing. So I started doing that, and I had a lot of fun doing that, picking paintings and recreating them. And then Zoom had been invented. So I got Zoom, and I got all my friends, there are about 15 of them, and once a week we would play bingo. And on Zoom, we'd get together like at 5. First of all, we got together every evening at 5 o'clock in the evening and chatted with each other on Zoom so we could see each other and converse and talk about wonderful things that happened while we were locked in our houses. Of course, there were people that weren't adhering to that, but most everybody was staying in. And then once a week, we would play bingo, and whoever bingoed got a prize. One person had to take them a prize and leave it at their door. And it would be something from their house because we weren't going out shopping, or maybe something we bought on Amazon and had it delivered. And then we added horse racing, and we had a horse racing game, and did the same thing with that. It would go on and on. I have to go back to my recreation of the paintings and tell you that at one point I had this painting of this guy, and he was kind of blonde, and he had kind of a blonde, big mustache. Well, what was I going to use in the house for this blonde, big mustache? I shaved the side of Snuggles, my dog, and glued it on cardboard and made myself a mustache for this painting. So, poor little guy.
So, tell me, what things do you collect?
Well, right now I'm collecting whistles.
Whistles?
Whistles. And before that I've collected, I can see there's a lot of beaded animals behind you, Gary. And then, what else I've collected?
Collect art.
I do collect art, yes. I try and buy a piece of art on every trip I go on.
So tell us about the piece of art behind you.
Well, you can look on YouTube and see Kim showing it off and taking it to Antique Road Trip.
Roadshow.
Antique Road Show. Excuse me, I watch Antique Road Trip, but that's in England. There's Antique Road Show, and she and Gary took it up to, I got tickets to go to Antique Road Show in Fort Worth. You get them like 8 months in advance. I forgot all about them, and I booked a trip to California. So I couldn't go when it came time for the show. And I said, oh, please go up to Fort Worth and take this with you. And they did. And Kim calls me and says, Mama, I'm going to be on TV on the show. And I had bought this in Santa Fe many years earlier. And so Kim got to display it at the Antique Road Show. And she's on TV still. I see her pop up every now and then. One of her friends said that they were on a cruise in the middle of the Mediterranean, and they walk out of the restroom in their cabin, and there's Kim on the TV. So.
And you got to be on Antiques Roadshow also.
I
so
did.
lightning struck twice.
Struck twice. I think it was 3 years later they came to the McNay Museum, and I once again got tickets, and this time I didn't forget about them, and I had picked out 3 things. You're allowed to bring 3 things. So I picked out 3 things to take, and I was walking out the door, and I said, oh, I better take these earrings that Mother had given me, and I grabbed them, I wrapped them up in toilet paper, very precious item, and shoved them in my pocket, and sure enough, that's what I get selected for, to be on TV with that.
And tell us about what would they say about the earrings?
Well, they were a yellowish colored diamonds, which I thought was not a good thing, but that actually is a good thing. They were by a designer named Julius Cohen, and they said they were worth $85,000. And when they finished filming, I turned around and they said, this policeman will escort you to your car. So.
And where did Theodora get them?
We don't know. We don't know.
When do you think that she got them?
We don't know. We know most things about what she got. Maybe she was embarrassed that she paid so much for them or something. We don't know.
That's funny.
But you haven't asked me about the 4th of July.
Oh, tell us all about the 4th of July.
In 1994, Kim and Gary and I think Duncan was around by then, and I and Mother were standing, and we'd go every 4th of July, we'd go down to the square and watch the parade, which was like 6 antique cars and an antique bicycle go around the square. They weren't decorated or anything. So we were standing there watching this, and afterwards there would be a ceremony in the gazebo, and I'd say it ended with a fat lady would sing, because there was a fat lady that would sing God Bless America. And so I was standing there thinking, oh, geez, I wish I could be in a small town parade. Why can't I be? So I told Kim and Rob and Gary and everybody to invite their friends for the next 4th of July, and we'd be in the parade. Now, Kim is a real rule follower, and she was worried that I had not gotten permission to be in that parade. I wasn't going to get permission. And so everybody flew in and came for it, and we had decorations of crepe paper and balloons, and it poured rain the night before, and we drove down to the square to be in the parade, and the lady in charge of the parade said, you all lead the parade. So we led the parade around the square, and I was in the promotional product business, so we had throws. We'd throw things to people. Well, we had half our throws left, so we caught up with the end of the parade and went around a second time so we could throw all our throws. So the next year, another golf cart showed up all decorated. And by about 4 years later, there were 154 floats had entered that parade. Now it's huge. And I still go and I enter it every year. At some point, Gary decided he wanted to have a Mustang for Belle. I got to take it back. At some time, I decided I decided that Belle would be Princess of the Comal. And I had a sash made. And I had a friend embroider it that said Princess of the Comal. And Kim says, Belle's very disappointed. She wants to be Queen of the Comal. Okay, so I got a sash made and embroidered that says Queen of the Comal. And she rode the golf cart. We bought her a special dress. I made her a long train that said USA on the back. And she became Queen of the Comal and continued doing that for a long time. But Gary decided he wanted to get a Mustang for the Queen of the Comal to ride in. So he did that. And then I decided I wanted to get a little replica MG, 1952 MG, for the Queen of the ride in. So I got that. So, and Belle did it for a long time. And then finally the last year that the Queen was in the parade, her cousin, Amelia Sindelar, became the Queen. She took over the queendom.
Okay, so is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to add before we go? No? Okay. Okay. Say goodbye.